Please forgive us. As I speak, I'm going to ask the white Americans in the room to please repeat after me. On behalf of myself and on behalf of my country, to you and all African Americans, from the beginning of our nation's history, in honor of your ancestors and on behalf of your children, please hear this from my heart. I apologize. Please forgive us. With this prayer, I acknowledge the depth of the evils that have been perpetrated against Black people in America. From slavery to lynchings to white supremacist laws to the denial of voting rights, to all the ways, both large and small, all of them evil, all of them wrong, for all the oppression and all of the injustices. I apologize. Please forgive us for the denial of any civil rights, for inequalities in criminal justice, to any instances of police brutality, to the denial of opportunity, for economic injustice, for any ways that a racial element has played into the perpetration of injustice. I apologize. Please forgive us. Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, which abolishes slavery. A presidential pen could end, and a constitutional amendment could end the evil institution. But racism didn't end. You can't, no presidential pen or constitutional amendment could eradicate racism. It could eradicate the institution, which was a manifestation of that. There are certain things the government's not going to do, so where does it begin? It begins with us, and that begins with atonement.
We have been Black powerless people for 400 years. I've seen people boxed in, Black children, in Harlem of New York. I've seen people boxed in, Black people, in Chicago, Illinois, in the slums, with the babies sick, rats eating on the babies. So what we mean by Black power is we mean to have not only Black political power, but Black economic power, to have a voice in the educational system, that our kids will know, not only the Black kids, but the white kids should know the kind of contribution that have been made by Black people throughout this country. We won't determine some of our destiny. And this is what Black power means. We want to have something to say about our destiny.
Hello guys, for centuries, America told one story, their story. But now, Black Americans are telling the real one, and it is the only truth. And that truth is shaking the very foundation of white America, because for the first time, the world is seeing exactly how much has been done and how deep the damage has run. And guys, I want us to watch these videos, then come back and have a talk as far as this topic is concerned. And of course, if you're watching these videos for the first time, please hit that button, subscribe, and leave us a comment in the comment section. Let's dive, guys, and come back and have a talk.
I mean, imagine you go all around the world and smash up everything that other civilizations built, loot what they built, pillage, steal, even steal their ideas and their concepts and their philosophies. And then you sit on top of this mountain of stolen goods and declare yourself to be rich because of your own merit. And imagine telling this lie to your children, to your own children, to your grandchildren, generation after generation. How do you think that's going to go? You didn't invest in creating actual merit. You cheated, you lied, you stole, you brutalized. And then you tell your own people that everyone else in the world has nothing and you have everything because of how much better you are than everyone else. How long is that lie sustainable? I mean, these are people who actually have civilizations, who actually created and built and accomplished and didn't just pillage and plunder. And there's still those people today, even though you have oppressed them, there's still those same people. And you're still the way you are. I mean, a good example actually is African Americans. I don't know if you can think of a people who were more held back, more deprived, more sabotaged than African Americans. You took everything away from them and took them away from everything. They started in your country at less than zero, literally regarded and treated as subhuman, not allowed to learn to read or write or anything for hundreds of years. But you see, they come from a people of accomplishment to one degree or another, not a people of piracy and theft and appropriation. They come from a people who created and built and developed in their own countries, in their own land. And even though you...
Now guys, welcome back. Now, for years, schools taught us half truth. They skipped the theft, they skipped the violence, they skipped the exploitation and the stolen dreams. But now, the internet and the black Americans are uncovering the buried chapter. The land was taken, the businesses were destroyed, and the invention claimed by other people. Talk of the Tulsa, Oklahoma, talk of the redlining maps, talk of the old patents, and the modern day systemic racism. Every new discovery exposes how much Americans' wealth, power, and the privilege came directly from the black suffering, the black Americans.
The whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other before we figured out there were other people to kill. We just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people, right? So ultimately the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture. So they all of a sudden create this thing called whiteness and they say, now you're part of the club. Now we're going to let you testify in court, enter into contracts, vote, at least if you're a man, own a little bit of land, at least if you're a man, right? And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that, because you're too good for that. And we're going to take the white men, now called white men, and put them on the slave patrol to keep black people in line. Give them a horse and a gun and a badge and make them feel big and powerful, right? They're still poor. They still don't have anything. They didn't pay the slave patrol well, right? Just exploited them, used them as a buffer between the elite and the other poor folks, particularly poor folks of color. And pretty soon the rebellions that occasionally happened where black and white got together to overthrow the elite, those stopped because the divide and conquer had begun to work, right? You could turn people against each other by telling those poor white folks, they got to keep these black people in line. And so that divide and conquer gets initiated in the colonies. Rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. Fast forward to the Civil War era. And you have, I'm from the South, right? My people, the elite in my part of the country, right, actually announced that the reason they wanted to break away from the Union and possibly go to war with their brothers and sisters to the North was in order to maintain slavery and white supremacy. They said that at the time. We lie about it now. And we say it had nothing to do with that. But of course, at the time, they didn't have any shame about it, so they just said it openly, right? The vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, said that the cornerstone of the new government was the great truth that the Negro was not the equal of the white man. So that's the reason the Confederacy was formed and existed. But here's the trick. If I'm rich and I want to go to war to protect my ownership in other human beings, my property, but you're poor and you don't own any enslaved people, why the hell would you go fight to protect my stuff? Because I'm a rich person. I'm not going to fight. Rich people don't go to war, right? Rich people get poor people to go to war for them, whether it's in 1860 or whether it's during the 1960s or whether it's today, right? Rich folks get doctors to write notes for them that say that they have heel spurs and that's why they can't go to Vietnam. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, you can Google that shit because he's sitting in the White House right now, right? Oh, I can't go fight. I have heel spurs. Send some poor kids to do that for me, please, right? So that's been a long-standing tradition. So the rich have to figure out a way to convince the poor to go fight for them. But that's a hard thing. That's like a hard sell, right? Like how the hell, why would you do that? Why would you go fight to protect my property rights when you don't own anything? The only way you would do it is if that rich person comes to you and says, hey, listen, you gotta go fight because we gotta maintain our way of life because if these people get free, they're gonna take your jobs. No, fool, they already got your job. That's how it works, right? Because if I'm white and I got to charge you $1 a day to work on the farm, but you can get a black person to do it for nothing because you own them, guess who got the job? Free got the job, right? So in a sense, poor white folks would have been better off joining with black folks to overthrow the slave system. That would have raised the wage floor of all working people. But they got tricked by rich white men telling them that their enemies were black and brown. Fast forward to the 1930s. And you have white labor leaders. They're not even the elite, right? The labor leaders are not the elite, but they're the elite within the labor movement. And even they had fallen for it at this point. So they didn't want to integrate their unions. And they would say things like, well, we can't have black people and Mexicans and Chinese folks in our unions because if we do that, it's going to reduce the professionalism of our craft. We have to maintain the integrity of our profession. No, fool, you need more people in the damn union is what you need. And if you don't let those folks in, guess what happens when you go out on strike? Who is the boss going to use to replace you? They're going to replace you with the very same black and brown folks that you didn't want to work next to, right? And so at the end of and then you're going to blame them for taking your job rather than the white rich dude for giving it to them, right? Divide and conquer, telling not rich white folks that their enemies are black and brown. And now we fast forward to the president. We got the president of the United States becoming president on the basis of that same rhetoric. Telling not rich white folks that the reason they don't have a job is because Mexicans took them. If you inherited $200 million from your daddy's real estate empire, you sure as hell are not a self-made anything or a rugged individual. You might want to write that shit down. So there is no rugged individual anything. We're all social beings. Some have had opportunity, others have not. Unless we're honest about that, unless we're willing to have a conversation, we end up misleading ourselves and we can't understand what we're seeing. And then if we can't understand it, we're not going to fix it, right? We're not going to fix the disparity in housing if we don't understand where it came from. So if the data says, and it does, that white folks on average have 15 times the net worth of black folks, 13 times the net worth of Latino folk, right? We just assume, well, we must have worked harder. Is that right? That's interesting, because actually the black folks and brown folks have done some of the hardest work in this country ever since the country was founded. Were it not for the labor of African descended peoples, there would be no country at all. In fact, it was my family, white slave-owning family in the South, that got black folks to do all the hard work because we were lazy asses and didn't want to work at all. White folks in the South on the plantation used to want to sit on the porch and drink mint juleps and have carriage rides rather than work, while black folks did all the real labor. And yet we decided that black folks are lazy, which I find fascinating. Right? And then people write to me and say, well, these black people, they're just taking all the jobs. Okay, which is it, precious? Because it can't be both. People of color can't take all the jobs and be lazy. I don't ask much of racists because I expect very little, but you cannot be lazy and take all the jobs. Are we at least clear on that? Like, if you took all the jobs, you were like the opposite of lazy. If you are indeed lazy, you probably did not even take one job, let alone all of them. So I just need racists to get their damn story straight. That's all I ask. I just don't like moving targets. That's all, right? But if I don't tell my daughter the truth, she defaults to the position of the culture, and then she can't understand what the problem is. The same is true with policing. You can't understand the Black Lives Matter movement and the importance of it if you don't know the history and the relationship between law enforcement and black and brown peoples. If you understood that history, you wouldn't ask one question about why this movement is necessary and why it's righteous. If you knew that history, but you don't know it, and it's not your fault. You weren't supposed to know it, and nobody taught it to you, right? So you don't have to know that modern policing traces back to slave patrols. That black folks' first experience with law enforcement was having, you know who? Working class and poor white folks on horseback going around keeping black folks in line on behalf of the rich master that owned all the property. That sounds a lot like modern policing, because ain't no rich people policing, right? It's working class folks who are out there protecting the property of rich people against the depredations of poor people. That's what modern policing is, and it traces back. And we know that's what modern policing is, by the way, because we will lock you up for 10 years for $100 worth of food stamp fraud. But if you take $12.5 trillion on Wall Street, 20% of the net worth of this country, you will not do one day in jail.
Family, please listen to something that Donald Trump said in regards to our National History African American Museum and History and Culture in DC. You know that he is removing many of the artifacts out of there, return them to their owners, because he says museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not to be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history. First of all, that is such ignorance. So you're saying that you want to remove what really happened in American history because it's divisive, but yet you all had a problem when we were telling you all you need to remove the Confederate flags, remove these Confederate statues because they were divisive. You know, when I first saw this, that what the president and many of his racist cohorts are trying to do, they're trying to erase us. We know that. And at first I got angry, and then I got nervous, but then I got quiet. And I said, you know what? God is not going to allow this. Black people will never be erased, and more so our ancestors won't. See, white people, I'm explaining something to you all, especially you racist white folk. God has given you all ample enough time to turn away and repent from your evil, wicked ways, and also to repent on behalf of your ancestors. But you still refuse to do it, and you still sit in your white evangelical nationalist churches and preach this God of love, but yet you want to erase history. If your history is so bad and you are so good now, why can't you teach that, hey, this is what we used to be. This is how we used to treat blacks. This is how we used to treat Native Americans. This is how we used to treat Jews. But now we have learned. You know why you can't do that? Because you have not learned. You haven't. I'm telling you, white folk, your day of reckoning is coming, but it's not coming from where you think. See, our ancestors have been quiet in their graves. They have been quiet. And see, many of you all, you don't believe in all of that, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you what I know. You keep removing our artifacts. Removing our artifacts from this museum is like troubling a cemetery. And I'm telling you now, God is not pleased, and the ancestors are not pleased. See, we battle a spiritual war, right? So you can sit up here all day long and read your Bibles and quote your little verses while you sit in your white churches, drive your little Harley Davidson gang to your white churches while you sit in the pews drinking your coffee and looking so smug and arrogant. But when judgment starts falling on your home and on your church and on your people, don't look at us. Because God said, I've given these people enough time, and they still have not repented for the sins of their forefathers. And for that, judgment must come. So black folk, this is a little troubling that they're going to remove stuff, but hey, we're not attached to things, right? It doesn't matter. Because you can take away artifacts, you can do whatever you want, but you can never take away the sincerity, the passion, the vigor, the brilliance of our people. And you damn sure not going to stop our next generation. Racist white folk, watch yourself. You are sinners in the hands of an angry God, and he is not pleased with you.
We can't call it progress when it was built on stolen lives and dreams. As the truth spreads, white America is divided. Some are very furious, others are full of regret. They are angry because the history they have been proud of is now being rewritten with the facts and fantasy. And they regret that they stayed silent for a long time while benefiting from the very system that oppressed millions and millions of the black Americans.
White folks with very little power. For them, it's just habit. I have been speaking more vocally on race and sort of documenting my deconstruction of the racism I was indoctrinated into as a child. And when I make those videos, there are 3 different kinds of comments I get, excluding the racist assholes because I just delete and block them. But from white folks, I generally get, oh my God, I never even thought about it like that. And from black folks, I usually either get, thank you for speaking out, or how can you not know this? Why are you shocked? We've been saying this forever. And that third response is 100% valid, and I completely respect it. You're right. I should know it. We all should know it. But it's that first response is the reason why I'm documenting this process I'm going through. Have been going through for years, but it's accelerating pretty quickly right now. Because us white folks are stuck in this loop of we don't know what we don't know. We were literally taught lies. So I'm just going to keep speaking truth.
I posted a video of our conversation of the part where you said the default human is a black woman. Then a white, blue-eyed, blonde woman commented this.
That comment is a textbook example of hierarchical inversion, a psychological defense mechanism used to mask inherited guilt and structural incoherence with delusional superiority. The phrase, "they perfected us," reveals an internalized fantasy that rewrites history as a ladder with her at the top, instead of a tree with roots that trace back to the very people her systems erased. And the line, "that's why they hate us," projects hostility onto those she structurally benefits from, flipping the oppressor-oppressed dynamic to portray herself as a victim of admiration or envy.
They call it rewriting history, but it's really just telling the truth they try to erase for years. Black Americans here are connecting the dots. The economic traps, the broken policies, the propagandas, all designed to keep black people down.
As I was going back to see, he pointed out for me I could go back when I want to. Go back to where? Huh? Go anywhere.
Let's start from slavery to Jim Crow law, from redlining map of mass incarceration. The system was never broken. It was built this way. It was built to work the way it is working. And now that truth is out. There is no going back as black Americans, because black America is no longer asking for recognition anymore. Instead, they are demanding for the accountability, and that's what they want. It is not just America watching. The whole world is watching. From Africa to Caribbean, people are waking up to how the West built its power by breaking others. The illusion of innocence is fading away, and the guilt is spreading like the wildfire. Because when one people rise in truth, the lies of another can't survive in the truth. And with that, white brothers and sisters are very much furious, not just because the truth hurts, but because the power that came with those lies is slipping away.
This is Senator Scott Beeson, and listen to what he had to get on TV and apologize for saying.
When I was reading to prepare for this interview, I was quite surprised to see you use the word Aborigines, talking about African Americans.
You know, I've dealt with that issue. I've already, talked publicly about that.
And my purpose here today is to say that I'm very sorry, and I apologize to anyone whose feelings were hurt by my comment.
Why would their feelings be hurt?
I've made very, very clear I don't know where that comment comes from.
Well, from your subconscious.
Well, I guess. I mean, it's not even a normal thing anyone would say, even if you meant something in a negative fashion. I don't know if you would pull that out. But for me personally...
Well, from your subconscious.
Well, I guess. I mean, it's not
subconscious.
even a normal thing anyone would say, even if you meant something in a negative fashion. I don't know if you would pull that out. But for me personally, you can't just close down camp and stop trying to do the things that you think are right just because somebody, you may give them an unfortunate bit of ammunition. You still got to continue to fight on and do what's best for the state.
I hear that.
Personally, you can't just
you may give them an unfortunate bit of ammunition.
Do the things that you think are right just because somebody, you may give them an unfortunate bit of ammunition. You still got to continue to fight on and do what's best for the state in the long run. And frankly, it's going to give me the opportunity to talk about things that I may never been able to talk about before.
You mean the bill?
Or the bill, or talk about race related issues, things like that. I mean, I have a freedom that a lot of people don't have because of that.
Because you used the word Aboriginal.
Because I've been through the fire, and I can talk to people, I can relate to people, I can let them know what kind of person I am, and we can talk about things that sometimes have been, a little bit taboo.
So because it allowed you to reach audiences you might not otherwise have reached, do you not regret saying it?
I think it gives me some opportunities. I went and spoke to a group in the city of Birmingham. It was a city councilwoman's community meeting, probably 95% African American. And because
so he was calling the African Americans Aborigines. And he had to apologize for it. They probably said, get your ass and fix it.
Right, offhand remark I should not have made.
Which you don't want to say.
Yeah, I know better.
Y'all see that? They made this man get on TV and apologize for calling the African Americans in Alabama, one of the blackest states in this country, Aborigines. He called them Aboriginals, and even an interviewer called them out on it and said it came from your subconscious, because in their world, they're in different societies and secret societies and shit like that. And the truth is the truth, and they know that we're the indigenous people, or the original, what they would say aboriginal people of this particular landmass of America. The black Americans are the indigenous Americans, and Scott Beeson said it. And remember, he said we can't just shut down shop because we may give them an unfortunate bit of ammunition. Give who an unfortunate bit of ammunition? Who is he talking about? He's talking about the African Americans he was talking about. Y'all see, this shit is it's a hidden game they're playing with people. They know they stole our land from us, and they know we are the indigenous people of this landmass. They probably told that motherfucker, you better get up there and apologize now. Because why would he be apologizing? Like, if he wouldn't apologize, people probably would even knew. They made him apologize. That's how they know their lie is skating on thin ice. We are the indigenous people of this landmass. It's big time, Mary.
They regret the exposure. They regret the footage, the evidence, but they don't regret the actions they have taken or they have caused these people. And that's the difference, because regret without change is still deception. And now they understand that the truth can't be buried anymore, because black Americans have discovered it, they are now exposing it and shared it with the world. And now Africans are speaking the story of the black Americans. It means the world is waking up to the truth. And now history will never sound the same again. History will never sound the same again, because darkness can never survive in the light. When the light comes, darkness has to leave.
In response to the murder of Carol Stewart and her child, and acting on a false, racist claim, framing a black man for her death, the city launched a systemic campaign targeting black men in Mission Hill and across our neighborhoods. Black fathers, black uncles, black brothers, and black sons. If you were a parent or a child or a partner or a friend, if you knew and loved a black man in Boston, you feared for his life.
Wicked.
There was no evidence that a black man had committed this crime. But that didn't matter, because the story was one that confirmed and exposed the beliefs that so many shared, from residents and reporters to officers and officials. At every level and at every opportunity, those in power closed their eyes to the truth because the lie felt familiar. They saw the story they wanted to see. And as a result, our black residents suffered. As a result, Alan Swanson suffered, Willie Bennett suffered, and their families continue to suffer.
So I had to say something about this because this didn't sit well with me. So Lupita Nyong'o, I don't know how you say her name, but I guess that's how you say it. So she says, I wasn't aware that I belonged to a race called black until I came to America. In Africa, you can grow up knowing your tribe, knowing your language, knowing your culture, and that's great. But in America, our ancestors had all that stolen from them. Slavery erased our tribes, our kingdoms or countries, our names, and just left us with one identity, and that's black. And trust me, this country doesn't let us forget it. So when I hear someone like her say, oh, I didn't know I was black until I came to America, it's like, look, shut up. Shut up. That's just who we identify as. We identify as black Americans. That's it. That's all it is. Being black American means survival, it means pride, and it means fight. We got a history and culture forged right here in America, and goddamn it, I'm proud of it. Oh, I forgot, and guess what? You're not black. You're not black. You're not part of this tribe, okay?
My name's Kylie, and this is how hatred is taught in a lot of white families. If you've ever wondered how can people grow up and be so hateful or just so out of touch, this is how. A lot of the time, hatred is silent and insidious, and it teaches white people to be complicit in racism and other types of bigotry. For instance, if you do want to have a conversation about race or something else, your parent might quickly shut you down and say, oh, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about these types of things. That is how white people are socialized to be so unbelievably selfish and honestly ignorant of racism despite being the perpetuators of it, despite literally creating the system. That's why I said in a previous video that our knowledge of racism is like honestly like children, because we are not taught to discuss these things, right? That's why white people get so defensive, because they hit their 20s and 30s and for the first time they're being called out. That combined with scarcity thinking, they're taking our jobs, there's not enough for the rest of us. That ignorance is what creates hatred. For the most part, the white moderate is the truly dangerous people, because they're not the full-blown extremists, but they're the people just in the middle that allow these types of comments and honestly racist practices to continue. You grew up and you were taught to be nice and not question the status quo. You were taught to be complicit in systems like racism, transphobia, and homophobia.
If you love our videos, please subscribe and leave us a comment in the comment section, guys. May God bless you so much.